Oh, let's get the music going. So, as the title suggested, we're going to be aiming for page 100 here. And oh, hey, not yet. Not whoa, 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 whoa. I did not press play. I did not give you permission for that. So, we are currently on page 53, and I'm going to be trying to get to page 100 because the book is about like 230 some pages long. So I want to be able to get somewhere around like halfway done with this book, because it'd be kind of nice if I could get this entire thing done in like 4 streams. I think that's like a fairly decent amount, and shouldn't take too long to get there. Just have to do pretty much the same amount we did last time, and we kind of like. I think sometimes when it comes to reading like books like this, it gets a little easier once the pace of the book starts picking up. Because like it's like both, like with a lot of some books, like both reading and listening to them, like or what it actually just going through the book is always a little slower when things are like just kind of like establishing stuff. And because so far we've just kind of been like, you know, like I guess this is as good as time as any to segue into the summary of what's happened so far in chapters 1 through 7. So Diggeldy Dan is a clown in Spangleland, and he has been a clown for 100 years and a day, at least at the start of the story, because several days pass. But at the start of the story, he gets a dream where the pretty lady with the blue eyes comes to him, and she's the fairy of the circus, and she tells him, "Hey, Diggeldy Dan, every night, you're gonna do something, and I'm gonna meet you. I'm gonna meet you tomorrow, and we're going. No, she just said I'm gonna meet you tomorrow, and we're gonna talk about something, if I remember correctly." And he's like, "Whoa, that's crazy." And so then the next day he meets up with her. She comes in the form of a bird at first, but then she transforms after some like weird riddle stuff. And she's like, "Hey, at every night at 12:30 twilight, you're gonna have to open up all the cages and let all the animals out." And that meaning like tigers, lions, bears, oh my, even a monkey who was the best character in the book. And so he's like, at first he's like, no, I don't want to do that. And she's like, nah, it's fine. And he's like, okay. And so he let the animals out. And at first, first night is just them like running around in a circle and like having fun. Second night, they elect like it's called like they elect like offices, but they only elect 2 positions. It's not like they delegate like a whole bunch of different types of like positions to all the animals. It's just Lion becomes the leader, and Diggeldy Dan has to write all the interactions they have at 12:30 twilight down, and then every single so often they send the transcripts to the pretty lady with the blue eyes. And apparently this whole thing comes from this whole like idea, the whole prophecy of Diggeldy Dan letting the animals out comes from a monkey called Vargu. No, Tubotan. The monkey's name is Tubotan, and his dad's name was Vargu. And we're at the point where we're going to learn the story about Vargu and how like all the animals in Jungle Land, which is where Tubotan comes from, ends up becoming friends. And so we're gonna get into that. That's chapter 8. Like chapter 7 just starts off with like, oh, Tubotan meets like a jaguar. I think, is it a jaguar or a leopard? To check. It doesn't really matter too much, but I just want to, for curiosity's sake. Does it even say? I mean, it must, but I don't remember what page it was on. Different animals. Leopard. It was a leopard. So yeah. So this is a story about Vargu and the leopard. So we're gonna start with chapter 8. Let's get the music going. I didn't even hear it last time at all because I had it like really soft in the last stream, and I think I had it too soft. Because I tried listening back just to make sure we didn't have another incident where I do a whole stream and my audio is not there at all. My audio was fine, but the music wasn't there. And I don't want it to be... I want it to be very subtle and in the background, but I don't want it to be completely, like, not there. So we're going to, like, increase the volume a little bit. We'll see how things go. Anyways, let's continue with the adventures of Diggeldy Dan. Chapter 8, in which the pretty lady continues her story. Hidden away in the folds of that mantle called twilight, as everyone knows is laid over the earth with every setting of the sun, is a wee little hour that is fairly made for telling of stories. And to those of Spangaland who know how to find it, though none save they who possess a pedal watch will ever learn how, there is a very minute which marks the beginning of half-past twilight. And that is the best time of all. With its coming, the blue of the tent poles seems to grow a shade softer, and the great rope-fettered roof and the lazy breeze-wafted walls melt from white into gray. It is then that the red and gold cages slyly gleam from their places in the circle they form, and most, next page, wonderful of all, then that every door opens thanks to good Tubotan. And on this particular evening, of which you are to hear, you may be sure that the funny old clown in the polka dot suit, that's Diggeldy Dan, and the chattering brown fellow with the twinkling brown eyes, Monkey, of course, had loosened all the animals much faster than before. The reason? You've guessed it. The promised story from the pretty lady with the blue eyes. I'm going to turn the volume, because it's loud in my ears. It's like a... There we go. It's a little bit better. It's like at 18. It's crazy. Alright. Hardly had the animals taken their places when there came a sound of hoofbeats mingling with a laugh that was so like to tinkle bells, and into the circle galloped the white horse, bearing the one for whom they all waited. "A merry twilight," she cried, as the two came to a stop in front of the group. "A merry twilight to you, too," answered Lion, and then all the rest added their voices in greeting while Dan skipped to the side of the white horse, offering his round pointed hat as a cup to receive the pretty lady's foot. What? That's weird. People do that? People offer their hat as like a stepping... I feel like that would just make you like trip. Like there's no like stability to a hat. Like just take her hand or something. What are you doing? All right. Then she accepted as quickly as a wink and tossed her slim little whip and the bag with the spangles to the broad back of Hippo, made a quick little run and a quick little bound, twitched her toe tips together just as riders always do at the circus, and then ran straight to the seat in the midst of the animals. "Now," she said, "if you will pay the strictest attention, I'll go on with the story. But first, who will tell me just how it began?" At this, all the animals talked at one time, and there arose such a din that the pretty lady put her two hands to her ears in duressed despair. Duressed despair? I don't even know what duressed means, I'm gonna be honest. "Order! Order!" shouted Lion. "Gracious, what a racket! Giraffe, since you were the only one who remained silent..." For those who weren't here for the last time, Giraffe is mute. He can only communicate with chalk. "You may tell us the first part of the tale." So Giraffe took the chalk and, going to the side of his house, wrote these words. "Many years ago, that time animals mixed with own folk only, wise monkey Valgu, by name, thinking in tree, leopard passed underneath." Signed Giraffe. I love Giraffe too. I love the way Giraffe communicates. Just the fact that he signs his name after everything. I love that little touch. "Exactly," cried the lady. "You see the..." Next page. "Very wise monkey named Vagu." I have to say it I have to say it like that every single time. Please understand. "Had been sitting there wondering why it was that the different kinds of animals could not be more sociable. So when the leopard came in sight, What do you suppose Vargu did? A most unheard of and most daring thing. He spoke to him. Now at first a leopard whose name was Softfoot could not believe his... There's a lot of feet stuff going on in this chapter. He could not believe his ears, so he kept straight on his way, but Vargu was determined. He spoke once again. And with that the leopard stopped full in his tracks and gazed at the monkey in utter amazement. Why? What does that mean? He called up to the other. You cannot speak to me. You are a monkey. That out of context. That out of context sounds really... That's a really bad quote. Answered Vargu, but I can speak to you even if I am a monkey. And if you don't believe it, just listen to this. Hello, Mr. Leopard. Hello, hello, hello. And with that, he went scampering to the very top of that tree. For a moment, Softfoot made as if to spring into the tree, but he finally contented himself with blinking his eyes in a dazed sort of way. And then making off through the maze of the grass, shaking his head as he went. Yet, try as he would, he could not forget what had happened. He thought of it as he was going to sleep, and he thought of it when he waked. Then curiosity got the better of him. And the next afternoon found him trotting along beneath the very same tree. And there, as before, sat the monkey called Vargu. Hi there, Mr. Leopard. Glad to see you again, shouted the monkey from his place up above. Better stop and visit a while. I might know a fine story. I don't want to hear it, snarled Softfoot. Besides, as I warned you yesterday, leopards and monkeys can't speak to one another. Leopards talk to leopards, and that's enough. And away he went through the grass. Now that very same night, when all the leopards were gathered together, Great Spot, the biggest of them all, began to tell one of his stories. Some of the baby leopards were interested, but as for Softfoot, he had heard the tale so many times that he knew it by heart. So putting his nose between his paws, he lay with his thoughts far away. He was thinking of the monkey who lived in the tree. He wanted to tell me a story, mused Softfoot. I wonder what it was about. And so, though leopards never had anything to do with any animals except their very own kind, it somehow happened that the following evening found Softfoot trotting along under the same tree again. There sat the monkey, but to Softfoot's surprise, he spoke not a word. So the leopard moved on to the deep grass beyond, but after a moment he walked back again. And still the monkey uttered not a sound. For a third time he passed, and then Softfoot could stand the silence no longer. Well, he blurted, aren't you going to say anything? I feel like I messed that up. Let me redo that. Well, he blurted, aren't you going to say anything? Now at this precise moment, the monkey called Vargu did a far more daring thing than he had done when he first spoke to Softfoot. He made a great swing from the branch where he sat and landed plump under the visitor's nose. With a start of surprise, the leopard crouched back for a moment, and for a moment he made as if he were going to leap off through the grass. Had he done so, I'm sure I don't know what might have come of this tale. Indeed, I'm afraid there may have been none to tell. For who knows what, failing at this very time, Vargu might have accomplished his plan. Vargu might have never accomplished his plan. But without so much as moving 1 inch from the point he had reached on the ground when he swung, he calmly sat down, and at once began to count on his toes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Dear me! I wonder if I'm going to have enough! Exclaimed he to himself just as if there wasn't another animal for miles and miles around. Then he picked up his left foot and began to use his toes for counters all over again. By this time Softfoot had quite swallowed his snarl, and as if he had been a house cat instead of a leopard. Get some water. All right. By this time, Softfoot had quite swallowed his snarl, and as if he had been a house cat instead of a leopard, there is no telling what might have happened to him, for he was simply overcome with curiosity. 11, 12, 13, 14, continued Vargoo. Page 60. For goodness sake, 14 what? Broke in Softfoot. Why, answered Vargoo, looking up. Sorry, Vargoo. Stories, of course. 15, 16. Do you mean to say that you know that many stories? Demanded the leopard again, interrupting. Of course I do, replied the other. But since leopards can't talk to monkeys, you wouldn't be interested. 19, 20. But I am interested, protested Softfoot. Of course you are, said Vargoo, as he dropped his foot and ceased counting. And I know that you know a whole lot of tales in which I would be interested. More than that, we both know that all the different kinds of animals know stories that they might tell one another if they only would. And be a lot happier and a lot more sociable as a result. So why in the world don't we all get acquainted and be friends? We just can't, answered Softfoot. It isn't done. But we two are doing it right now, aren't we? Yes, admitted the other slowly. Well, argued Vargoo, what we two can do, all the animals can do. If they only will. And I have a plan that I am sure will succeed. What do you say? Will you help me? The leopard sat thinking fully for a moment, then walked up and down several times beneath the tree. Oh, come on, coaxed Vargoo. There's my paw on it, monkey, the other said finally. My name's Softfoot. Mine's Vargoo, the monkey answered gleefully. Vargoo with the U silent. Huh? Varg? His name's Varg? What? I've been saying it wrong this whole time? It's Varg? Huh? What do you mean the U is silent? Whoa. Okay, so... And now suppose we climb into the tree so we can talk undisturbed. That's a plot twist even I didn't know about. It's pronounced Varg? But Vargoo sounds so much cooler than Varg. Varg sounds like the name of like an orc. Vargoo sounds like the name of like a dark wizard. Anyways, this is chapter 9, in which the pretty lady concludes her story. Yeah, I remember I really like this this little Vargoo story because it's it's one of those stories where it's like not too on the nose, but you can kind of get the point, the moral of the story in terms of like how it relates to real life, in terms of like, you know, all the different cultures and stuff like that exist. You know, it's, at some point in like history, it was like we gotta keep to ourselves, and it's like, but there's so much you can share with each other. Why don't you just get along? She has a pretty good message. I actually brewed my tea properly this time. Last time I brewed it at like 200 degrees Fahrenheit. And this time I actually got it to boiling, so it actually brewed properly. So it tastes better this time. Right. So now let's finish the story of Varg. Varg. I'm that really is like a punch to the gut for me. I am actually kind of disappointed that his name is Varg. But Edwin P. Norwood has spoken, and I must comply. Once seated above each other... Wait, hold on a second. I've already messed up. Let me retry that. Let's just retry the whole chapter. Once seated above, each told other his favorite story. And these being finished, the leopard asked to hear one of Vargoo's secret plans. It's going to take me a while to get used to that. It's going to take me a while. I'm going to keep calling him Vargoo. It's spelled V-A-R-G-U. But apparently it says the U is silent. That's really going to bother me. Okay. The leopard asked to hear one of Varg's secret plan. Or to hear of. This is really throwing me off. You shall have it at once, the other declared. And with that he sounded a soft signaling note, while from somewhere appeared a solemn-eyed monkey, who is almost the image of Varg. This, said the latter, is my son, Tubotan. Pleased to meet you, said Softfoot, admiringly. A mighty fine lad. Sure enough. Yes, agreed Varg, with some pride in his tone, and even though I say it, who shouldn't? The very nimblest monkey in all Jungle Land, indeed. That is why I have made Tubo a part of the plan. So, now, if you'll both draw as close as ever as you can, I'll tell you what we're to do. Just what was said, I'm sure I don't know. But there was no end of whispering, all which argued that some deep, dark plan was afoot, that doubtless would be made known in good time. Now on the following night, the pretty lady continued. A very odd thing came to pass, for from the tops of the trees in many parts of Jungle Land sounded a weird, mournful voice crying these words. Great rock near the desert's edge, great rock near the desert's edge, rock, rock, rock. All the animals heard the strange cry, and some sprang into the trees to learn who had made it. But by the time they had done so, the voice was far, far away, repeating the words like an echo. On the very next night, and at the very same hour, the cry came again. With the speed of the wind, it passed through the trees, wailing... Next page. It wasn't saying next page, it's me saying it. Great rock near the desert's edge. Watch the hole in its face. Hole in its face. 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 I'm guessing that's supposed to be like an echo? Like, you know, face, face, face. Following this second message, there was no other topic in all Jungle Land. The different families discussed it for hours, but not even the wisdom of Blackmane, the mightiest of all the lions, could solve the riddle. Of course, all knew the rock, a huge wall of stone with a face as smooth as our own hippo's back. Some sent scouts to examine it. All returned with the very same word. There was not a sign of a hole to be found. Now, on the third night, the mysterious voice came again. It was here, there, everywhere, at once so it seemed, and as it passed on its way, these words were framed by its cry. Rock near the desert's edge. Watch the hole in its face at midnight tonight. At midnight tonight. 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 Excitement was everywhere. Jungle Land resounded with the cries of animal chiefs, calling their followers about them, and forming into bands. Each separate group began moving towards the great rock. Surprised they don't all have different languages. I guess it's like a usual fantasy stories where everyone just kind of speaks the same. Okay. Out of the forests and from the waste places, they came in herds and troops and in pairs, but each kind kept to itself, and reaching the ground that stretched from foot of the cliff, remained as far apart from the others as the width of the plains would allow. The moon was on high, and there were millions of stars. Yet these lighted the sides of the rock, and there was not a trace of the hole to be seen. Still it was not yet midnight, so with eyes fixed on the cliff, the strange gathering awaited some sign. And on the very minute it came. Yes, something was about to take place. First, every ear heard a deep muffled sound, like a drum that is played far away. Next, a wee stream of sand began to trickle down the face of the rock, then a rattling of pebbles and still larger stones, while high up near the top of the cliff there gradually appeared an opening, as round and as big as elephant's foot. Not an animal dared breathe. Every eye was alert, every muscle grew tense. Then from the very heart of the rock and out, through the hole came a voice that was almost like thunder. Who wants to hear my story? Or, who wants to hear a story? It roared. But not one of the watchers made answer. Who wants to hear a story? Roared the voice again. Then Great Spot the leopard took heart. We do, he replied. We also, called Black Mane, while soon from all sides came voices crying the same. Then hearken one and all, roared the voice from the rock. Now, what the story was about need not concern us just now, continued the lady. But there was a story, and oh, such an interesting one. At times, the listeners nudged one another with delight. What? Dreadful? That's not what it says. While the younger animals found themselves exchanging knowing glances with those they had never so much as noticed before. But as is often the contrary way of those who tell tales, the voice that told this one suddenly stopped at the most exciting point of the story. Tell us the rest, rose a cry from the plain. Tomorrow at midnight, roared the face from the cliff. Come then if you'd hear the end of the tale. Now you may be sure that the following night found all at the foot of the great rock again. They were gathered together a full hour before midnight, and some spent the time retelling the story. But not all told it alike, and soon, of all the unheard of things, animals who had never spoken to one another in all their days found themselves appealing to know if this or that were not the way the story had been told. Even as they debated, there came a roar from the cliffs, and the unseen one went on with his story. In time it was finished, and the great voice was stilled. Tell us another, cried all the animals from their place on the plain. But plead as they would, the voice came no more, and strangely enough they never heard it again. They returned to the plain the very next night, but the hole in the great rock had been closed. They waited until long after midnight, but not one single sound came to greet them. Never had there been such a... I'm gonna check my, hold on a second. I want to check the, I'm gonna, like, look the stream up on my phone to make, just to make it, like, absolutely certain that we're not, I'm not, like, streaming with, how do you even find, oh, there I am. They can make sure I'm not, like, muted or something. I'm gonna check my, yeah, okay. I want to check the, We're good. We're good. Just wanted to make sure. I would hate to have to redo another, like, reading stream. Like, in just from scratch again like that. Almost to page 69. It's amazing. Alright. Now let's get started up again. There's a notification though. Okay. Alright. Page 68. And it was talked about for days. Really messed up here. And it was talked of for hours upon hours and days upon days. Time after time the animals came to the great rock, and always in quest of the voice that was stilled. As they lingered night after night, in hope that it might come again, the various animals told their own favorite stories. And then little by little, different ones began listening to those that yet others told. This made for friendships, and one member... I need like a sip of tea or something. Hopefully they'll like recharge me or something. Alright. A certain monkey made bold to suggest that there, at least once a week, some particular animal be selected to tell one story to all. The thought was approved, and so as time passed along, this trysting, Trysting. They made that word up. That's not a real word. I refuse to believe it. Place came to be known by a name that is loved by every animal in Jungle Land. And what do you suppose it's called? The Storytime Rock, spoke up Lion. Why, yes, answered the pretty lady with the blue eyes. But how do you know, Lion? I heard my grandfather tell of it. But he always finished by saying there were none who ever solved the mystery of the voice that was stilled. No, no one ever did, said the lady. Yet like so many things that are thought to be mysteries, it was really simple enough. Then for goodness sake, tell us the secret, cried Monkey. As that wasn't Monkey's voice. For I'm just bursting to know. Why, it was like this. Long before Vargu... The watch! The watch! The pedal watch! Broke in Diggeldy Dan. 1,000 pardons, pretty lady, but it's almost closed. So it is, cried she, jumping to her feet. We've not a moment to lose. Back to your places, every one of you, she added as she bounded to her seat on the white horse. Until half after twilight tomorrow, and I'll come to tell you the rest. With a hurried sleep tight and a last silvery laugh, she sped towards her home in the west. Chapter 10. It's kind of weird that the previous chapter was called The Lady Concludes Her Story, and she doesn't conclude her story. Well, she kind of does, but it's left on a cliffhanger still, and that still feels kind of weird. Anyways, this is chapter 10, in which the pretty lady tells of mysteries and spangles. Going for a half an hour, and we have 30 pages left. I think we're gonna. It's probably gonna be like a 1.5 hour stream, I guess. I'm like paging ahead, and I just like. I started paging ahead, and I realized I have no idea why I would do that. I don't know what I'm looking for. Right. Well, said Tiger as he folded his paws in a most complacent manner. I'm ready. We also, declared Elephant, speaking for his entire family, who, having formed a line, were just at the moment swaying backward and forward, quite as if they were about to glide into a graceful maze of a waltz. A maze of a waltz. What does that even mean? Is it like when you have like so many people like dancing around that it's like a maze? Like if you're to walk through them, you have to like navigate all these people running around? So are all of us, commented Lion, as he surveyed the great group from his station before it. I wonder what could be keeping the pretty lady. Perhaps the white horse is delayed by the cloud, suggested Elephant, as he paused long enough to push back the wall near the eaves of the tent and peer into the dusk. I can make out a whole crowds of them among the streets of the sky. They have been there all afternoon. It is always that way on market days. Even the sun can scarcely find its way. How long do you suppose it's been since half-past twilight began? Asked Emu of Diggeldy Dan. What? Emu of Diggeldy... What does that even mean? Emu of Diggeldy Dan. Huh? Oh, I get it. Oh, Emu's asking Diggeldy Dan that question. I thought they were saying that was Diggeldy Dan's emu. Well, said the clown as he drew the pedal watch from his innermost depths of his round, funny hat. Now that's what I call a question. Yeah? Yeah? Let me see, mused he, sitting his head on one side, pursing his very red lips, and half shutting his two twinkling eyes. I should say, though, mind you, I do not pretend to be exactly correct. I could say it has been not less than 5 hippo yawns, nor yet more than 2 cat naps. Oh, surely it's been longer than that, protested Monkey. It seems an age to me. I've never saw a watch anyways. Now, if it had behaved for but a moment more last evening, we would have all known the secret of the Storytime Rock. Oh, okay, so let me reread that entire quote. Let me try to do an actual monkey voice here. Oh, surely it must be longer than that, protested Monkey. It seemed an age to me. I never saw such a watch anyways. Now, if it had behaved but for a moment more last evening, we should have all known the secret of the Storytime Rock. Monkey, sighed Lion. I am afraid that you are of that queer set of folk who are ever looking for a clock that will travel both ways at one time. Both ways at one time? Why, whoever spoke of such a thing? I surely did not, for of course no such clock could possibly be. No, it could not, answered Lion. Yet I repeat, that is what you would like. For in one breath you'll find that the pedal watch because it moved too swiftly last night, and the next you complain because it travels too slow today. Exactly, chimed Dan. Well, I never stopped to think of it in just that way, admitted Monkey, as he scratched his head. And besides, broke in the keen-eared hyena, there comes the one for whom we're all waiting. But I don't know what would a hyena sound like? Sure enough, there resounded a patter of oncoming hooves, and the next moment into the menagerie tent galloped the white horse, carrying the pretty lady with the blue eyes. Her pink cheeks made pinker by the speed of the ride, and her curls blown straight back with the rush of the wind. She drew up in front of the group. It was the clouds, she explained. There were simply no end to them, out shopping today, and then any number waited to see the sun go down. Of course, all had to have spangles. All of them had to, yeah, okay. Of course, all of them had to have spangles, and some of the baby clouds wanted 2 helpings, but all took time. That all took time. I'm very quickly forgetting how to read. But here I am at last. See, the spangle bag is almost flat as an elephant's ear. Well, where will you get enough spangles to fill it again? Asked Camel. I'll be glad to tell you, but for the present, one thing at a time. Remember, we have not yet solved the mystery of the Storytime Rock. Unless, she hastened to add, unless you have guessed the riddle of the voice that was stilled. Not one of us has, answered Lion, though we were all convinced that Vargu was pretty much at the bottom of the whole strange affair. He was, sure enough, assented the lady. And this was the way of it. Quite some time before he had made friends with Softfoot, Vargu had discovered an all but hidden cave with an entrance from the top of the cliff. He had explored it repeatedly and so knew its outer wall was almost worn through the face of the rock. Now, as you may have guessed, it was the nimble Tubotan who passed through the tops of the trees, sending out the strange cry that called all the animals together. I was supposed to have guessed that? I mean, I guess it makes sense, but I wouldn't have guessed that. Meanwhile, Vargu had taught Softfoot a wonderful story. Finally, there came the night when all the animals were gathered at the foot of the cliff. And then, taking a stone, Vargu pounded a hole through the wall of the cave to the outer side of the rock. Next, Softfoot spoke to those at the great plain below. And then he told them the story. Of course, since he was telling it from the hollow depths of the cave, his voice sounded ever so big. And there was really no mystery at all. So pretty much, Tubotan was running through the forest saying, "Hey guys, there's a story going. You gotta go to the rock." And then Tubotan's like smashed the hole open, and then Jaguar was in there like reading the story, and he had like pretty much like a cave offer, as a natural voice changer. Having gained his point, that of bringing all the animals together, Vargu gave... it's Varg. I already forgot. Varg. Again, that's really going to mess me up. Varg gave his time to the meeting that were held on the plain. Varg gave his time to the meetings that were held on the plain. As the years passed, Tubotan succeeded his father and became the favorite of all the animals. I'm like auto-filling this stuff in. It just turns out sometimes it's right. I guess what the next sentence is gonna be. I get like a pattern of reading, and I try to guess the next line, and sometimes I'm just wrong, completely wrong. I start reading ahead of where I am. His father and became the favorite among all those who told I need tea. I need tea. I'm dying. Nice. All right. Okay. He became the favorite among all those who told tales of the Storytime Rock. And finally he came to be a leader among them, and is to this very day. Shall we ever see him? Asked Diggeldy Dan. I'm sure I don't know. Sometime perhaps. And now, one and all, a merry good night, for I must hurry away to thread my spangle needles and set them in place. Spangle needles, repeated Puma. Pray, what are they? Why, what else but needles that catch the spangles, laughed the pretty lady. Which reminds me, I was to tell you about them. Here, Diggeldy Dan, take your place at the head of my white horse, while I explain just how spangles are made. You see, she went on, as Dan skipped to obey, spangles are really nothing more than dewdrops squeezed out very flat. As for a supply, there's no end, but to catch them there's a trick requiring no little knack. Now it has been my happy task to gather spangles for the clouds and for all the glittering hosts of our own Spangleland forever and ever and ever so long. And this is the best way of all. First, to take a great armful of needles, medium-sized moonbeams, give the finest results. Oh, so it uses moonbeams as needles. And thread them with cobwebs. Next, I plant them along the sides of my house, directly under the edge of the eaves, with their heads in the ground and their sharp little noses straight up in the air. Now, during the night, the dewdrops come to play on the roof, and many jump off to the garden below. And as they do, they land on the points of the moonbeams. They get impaled. The dewdrops get impaled. Okay. And down they come, never minding in the least, for if there is one thing that a dewdrop would rather be than a dewdrop, it's a spangle. On and on they come, piling one on the other, becoming very flat, very shiny and very round, and then sliding on to the threads. So when the morning comes, I take the spangle bag, snip the knots, and let the spangles tumble and tinkle into the depths. And so I always have enough to sprinkle the sunset whenever I pass. Why, that must be why the rain gets in the clouds, cried Diggeldy Dan. It's one of the ways, smiled the lady. And the reason why spangles always have a wee hole in the middle. What the heck is a spangle? Is that like an actual thing? Is it like, I genuinely don't know what it is. Alright, remarked the seal. How wonderfully fortunate, added Zebra. Otherwise they couldn't be sewed. I don't see why you would say that, said Kangaroo. Say what? Asked Zebra. Why, that they have to have holes to be sewed. But they do. Can't see it, persisted Kangaroo. Why, how could one make them stay on? Just sew them, of course, answered Kangaroo. Toss them on. Now, don't be silly, Kangaroo, said Zebra. You... Hold on a moment, interrupted Lion. I think I see the point. Let me ask you, Kangaroo. On what do you think of sewing the... On what were you thinking of sewing the spangles? Why, I mean, like when the pretty lady sews them on the cloud banks when she rides past, replied Kangaroo. And you, Zebra? Asked Lion. Camels, plush robe, and costumes and things, said Zebra. Oh, you mean sewed, cried Kangaroo. Oh, you mean sewed, as like, so Kangaroo thought it was, no, Zebra thought it was S-E-W-E-D, and Kangaroo thought it was S-O-W. There's a difference? I guess one of them is like sowing seeds and one of them is like sewing like with a needle. Oh, so Kangaroo is just like, oh, just drop them because, you know, you're sowing them like seeds. And then Zebra's like, oh, she's like sewing them like with a needle. So it's like, so you need to have a hole with them to actually use the, I still don't really know what they're talking about. And amid the laughter that followed, Dan assisted the pretty lady to the back of the white horse. You'll come again someday, asked Lion, as the gold-haired one waved them a smiling farewell. Someday, she replied, and giving full rein to her steed, she galloped down the length of the tent. As the white horse nosed his way through the wall, the animals caught a glimpse of the first darting beams of the far-distant star. The pretty lady seemed to regard the beams for a moment, as if trying to make up her mind. Whether they would quite do for spangle needles. Oh, trying to make up her mind whether they would quite do for spangle needles. Then the wall closed again the lady, the white horse, and the star passed from view, while all the animals hurried back to their places, still discussing the spangles that were made from the dew. I need like a break. I'm already like losing my reading ability. What little I had. I'm gonna look up what a spangle is. I need. spangle. A sequin is it's a sequin. A small piece of glittering material, typically sewn, S-E-W-N, so kangaroo's a dumbass. Sorry. As one of the many on clothing for decoration, a sequin. Oh, so they're like, oh, that's what those little circle things. Those little tiny circles. Oh, I understand now. Those tiny little like glittered circle things. They're called spangles. So they're like circles with like holes in the middle. So when they say like she just puts a whole bunch of needles in the ground and then the dewdrops fall on them and they turn into spangles. And then she just like sews them into the clouds. All right. For some reason, I assumed that they were like strands. I heard spangles and I thought of like stripes. I need some like more tea. We're almost at page 80, so then there's like 20 more pages. I kind of want to check. Is page 100 like actually at the end of a chapter? No, that's a. The chapter ends at chapter. So it's chapter 13. And chapter 13 goes until page 107. So I guess we're going until chapter 14. So we go from 8 to 14. All right. Chapter 11, in which the animals play at circus and Dan promises a story. Let me check something real quick. I want to take like every opportunity I can to like. That's a hot dog made out of an octopus tentacle. It's just a octopus tentacle in a hot dog bun with relish on it. I mean, honestly, like, it's probably like somehow less gross than an actual hot dog in terms of like what it's made of. Like, aren't hot dogs made from like I never actually figured out what hot dogs are made, because I know they're made of like ground meat and like in an intestine. But like, what's the actual like meat contents that goes in there? It's in like various just kind of various parts that don't really get used, like I don't know, like ears or something, like various parts of the pig that don't really get like eaten in like, you know, pork chops or stuff like that. Or yeah, I think it's usually pork, right? Like hot dogs are usually pork, right? There's like various like parts that, and it's like, you know, they taste fine. So like, and if it's like, oh, we're getting use out of like this part of an animal that otherwise we wouldn't eat, I think that's a good thing. All right, I think I'm almost ready. Almost ready to finish the reading break. This is where I would have my coffee and my tea and chocolate break. I don't drink coffee, and I have my chocolate right here. But I usually only I save my chocolate for dessert, because I have I can only eat like so much sugar per day. It's like a self-imposed sugar diet. But because it's probably not healthy to have like sugar before you go to bed. But I mean, like, I brush my teeth and all that, but yeah, it's like that's like the time for it. You know, at the end of the day, it's like it's a little nice enough before you go to bed. What the heck is this? I don't want. It's a video. I don't want to click on it, but it's like a guy like a disco pose in like a white background. He's like facing the other way. It looks like vaguely ominous. I'm like stalling now. All right, we're 50 minutes in, page 79. We got a ways to go. So that's like around like page 80. We started at page like 50, so that's like 30 pages. We have like about like 30 more to go. So we're about like halfway done with this reading. So it might be almost 2 hours long. All right. I got the music going again. All right. It was but in a few evenings following that upon which the pretty lady, it's just as pretty. I think I've said this before, but every time I see her name, like I want to say the full title, but it's usually not the full title. I just like full steam ahead and like say the whole thing. So the pretty lady had set out in quest of the spangle needles. Diggeldy Dan had mounted to his place on Hippo's broad back, and Lion had taken his in front of the group when the clattering crew made a startling discovery. Monkey was missing. Not Monkey. Look where they would. Dang it. Look where they would, he was nowhere to be found. Call as they would, he gave no answering sound. He unhooked my chain, cried Elephant, and opened the gate to my corral, added Ostrich. I saw him talking with Zebra not a minute ago, puzzled Dan. Zebra, repeated Lion. Zebra, where is Zebra? Why is he gone too? Page 80, nice. Here was a mystery indeed. Quiet. Scatter at once, ordered Lion. Let me redo that. That did not have the proper, Animals, roll out, ordered Lion, and leave no nook unsearched. And roll out they did. Some went into the depths of the cages. Others looked underneath, while Giraffe and his family inspected every square inch of the roofs. But not a glimpse did they catch of the runaway pair. Redouble the search, commanded Lion, from his station in the corner of the menagerie tent. But scarcely had he spoken when from a distance came the patter and clatter of hurrying hooves. All searchers to the front, countermanded Lion, for if I mistake not the sound, here comes a visitor who will doubtless be willing to lend us her aid. So Diggeldy Dan was just like, was it like oh, it was a few days. I thought this was like the next day, and she's just already just back. Even as he concluded, there dashed into the view, whom do you suppose? The pretty lady with the white horse. Ah, but you were wrong, for it was none other than Zebra, with that mischievous monkey perched on his back. Down the length of the tent, the two of them scurried, traveling lickety-split. Here, here, commanded Lion, get back to your places this very minute. Just as soon as we let the wind comb our hair, came the cry in reply. And the next moment, with Zebra's ears flopping his way in that, and Monkey doing his best to look entirely at ease, the truants returned to the group. What a picture they made. Zebra wore a bridle with a brilliant red plume, while Monkey was lost almost wholly in a gorgeous pink hat and a skirt made of blue. Well, young sirs, what does this mean? Demanded Lion. Why, whimpered Monkey, Zebra and I talked it over and thought it would be fun to play circus. So we stole away the little tents and borrowed some costumes. Now don't scold, Lion. We didn't mean to do anything wrong. Answered Lion, who was really rather pleased with the thought. Play circus, eh? Well, go ahead. Let us see what you two can do. Oh, this is where the cover image comes in. Of like, so Elephant is, or so like Kangaroo is on like a trombone. Elephant's on like a, was it like a bass, oboe, cello? The thing that was like a really big violin. Seal's on the drums. Monkey, who looks like a chimpanzee, is on like a violin fiddle thing. I could not tell you the difference. Dan is balancing his hat on the tip of his nose, which is rather impressive if that's like not like a, if that's like a cloth, like a fully cloth hat and not like an actual pointy hat. Lion is like standing on his back two. Lion and Tiger are just kind of standing on their back two legs. He looks huge Because like zebras, no, that's like a gorilla in the background with the fiddle. Monkey is like in a baby outfit. And there's like a zebra in the very front. And zebra looks tiny compared to lion. And then tiger, and so lion has a whip, which is like, you don't need the whip. You don't need the whip. Like, you can just talk to the zebra. You can communicate with him. There's no point in whipping him. And then tiger's in the background with a hat. He looks fly. He looks good. He looks good with that hat on. It's like the exact same like angle as my hat. And monkey is like doing a flip. He like fell off of the zebra. There's something uncanny about lion standing on his back two legs. They're like smiling too. I think it's just because lions are just inherently like terrifying. Anyways, back to the actual story. Oh, returned Monkey, brightening up. But we can't perform without a ring, and a ringmaster and everything like that. And of course we must have music, added Zebra. You see, we thought that since Elephant and Seal and their folks are such splendid musicians, perhaps they... Delighted, I'm sure, agreed Elephant, amid his family's ponderous nods of approval. At your service always, chimed Seal, as his household clapped their funny front fins in consent. If no objections will be... Since when do elephants play cellos? Since when do, I guess, seals like do like horns, right? If no objection, we'll make ring, scrawled Giraffe on the side of the cage. Of course, there was none, so digging the top from Dan's pocket and using his hind feet as a pivot, Giraffe spread his front legs wide apart, reached far with his neck, and gradually swung around in a great circle. While getting to page 100 is going to be harder than I thought. He described an almost perfect ring on the ground by using the spike on the top for a marker. So he probably just... What do they call those things? A protractor? To make a giant circle. Meanwhile, many willing workers rolled a dozen or more gaily painted tubs to the edge of the ring. Then came the band bringing all manner of drums and queer-looking horns, to say nothing of Elephant carrying his mammoth bass viol. Viol? I've never heard of it. So that's what he's playing? A viol. V-I-O-L. Huh. After which, each player took a seat on one of the tubs and began to tune up for the circus. Of course, we must have an announcer, said Lion. I'll be him, cried Tiger. Needless to say, Diggeldy Dan was the clown, while Lion, wearing an old silk hat that Seal sometimes juggled in the real circus, and armed with a whip that Puma had brought from the great tent beyond, played ringmaster. He does not have a hat on. There's no hat on Lion. There's a hat on Tiger. There's no hat on Lion. False advertising. And so the strangest of all circuses began. Just watch my 2 ears for the tempo and time, said Elephant, who conducted the band. Thus, with the bow of his great fiddle held firmly in his forefoot, he played notes that fairly boomed with their bigness and set his ears to beating. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, while the music tripped forth in a soft, swaying waltz. After a few bars had been played, Tiger raised his paw for silence and then stepped gravely to the front of the ring. So what chapter? We're still a ways away. Ladies and gentlemen, said he, I take pleasure in announcing Mademoiselle Monkeyetta, Mademoiselle Monkeyetta, direct from the depths of Jungle Land, who, with her marvelous steed, Zebra Ello, will now astonish you with her wonderful feats of riding. At this, Seal and his family played a ringing, lingering ta-ta-ta-de-ta-ta-ah-ah-ah. Ta-ta-ah-ah-ah. Ta-ta-ah-ah. I'm trying to like figure out what this is supposed to sound like. Ta-ta-ah-ah. Probably something like that. on their horns. The band struck up the liveliest of melodies, while into the ring trotted Zebra and Monkey, posed on his back. Close behind came Diggeldy Dan, balancing his round, pointed hat on the tip of his nose. And then, at a whip crack from Lion, the riding began. Around and around went the galloping pair, a maze of black and white stripes surmounted by the higgledy-piggledy ball of ruffles, of blue, a flopping pink hat with here and there. This paragraph is complete nonsense. You can't blame me for having trouble reading this. They have higgledy-piggledy as one of the words. I can need some, like, water or something. I'm, like, almost out of water, but I still have plenty of tea. Maybe it's the lack of chocolate that's destroying me. Alright, let's try this nightmare paragraph again. Around and around they went, the galloping... Wait, I already messed up. Around and around went the galloping pair, a maze of black and white stripes, surmounted by a higgledy-piggledy ball of ruffles of blue, a flopping pink hat, with here and there a brown leg or an arm. At first Monkey did little more than hold fast to Zebra's short mane, but gradually becoming used to his steed's measured stride, the merry-eyed fellow dared to stand on his feet and to dance as they flew around the ring. At this, all the animals applauded with glee, while Lion cracked his long whip even more than before. Faster and faster went Elephant Ears, faster and faster went the music, and faster sped Zebra. And then, all of a sudden, this wonderful steed stopped short in his tracks, sending Monkey high over his head. All leaped to their feet to see the marvelous rider sitting quite in a heap and striving to free his face from the depths of his hat, which had been completely switched about by the tumble. "I say there, that wasn't one of the things we planned to do," sputtered Monkey from inside the bonnet. "I know it," admitted Zebra, as he did his best to smother his laughter. "But as I was going around and around, it occurred to me that I would make a far better looking trick mule than a handsome circus horse. And as a trick mules always toss their riders over his ears, why, I just came to a stop and there you are." "Yes," assented Monkey, rather ruefully, "here I am." But scrambling to his feet and, disposing of the bonnet, he caught the twinkle in every eye, and then he too burst into a merry laugh. "Zebra, you were quite right," he said. "Perhaps we were both taking ourselves a bit too seriously, for I am bound to confess I hardly look like one of the beautiful circus ladies who ride around the rings. Anyway, it all added to the fun," said Diggeldy Dan. "In fact, Zebra reminded me of a donkey I once rode in a small one-ring circus of the long, long ago." Of the long, long ago. Seems like it's phrased weirdly. "Oh, then you were not always with the very biggest kind?" questioned Puma. "By no means," answered Dan, "and indeed might never have been had I not met Gray Ears the elephant." A story, cried Leopard. "Tell us the story." "Tomorrow I will," agreed Diggeldy Dan, "for the pedal watch warns me there is no time today. Come now, Zebra, hurry away with the plume and costume and put them where they belong, while Monkey and I close each door and corral." "At twilight tomorrow," the clown called, again as Zebra returned and his chin was hooked fast. "Then I'll tell you a tale of a midsummer's day, away back in the dim, distant past." Now we're at chapter 11. Is it normal that every time I get to one, because they're in Roman numerals. It was chapter 12. We already passed chapter 11, huh? Yeah, I guess. Apparently, yeah, chapter 12. Did we pass chapter 11? I feel like I'm like, yeah, chapter 11 was this one. Huh. For some reason I thought it was 10. I'm getting mixed up in every which way. Chapter 13 and then chapter 14 is the last one. We're like an hour in. It's probably be like a 1.5 hour stream. About the same as last time. Alright. So this one, and then chapter 14. Chapter 13, this is 12. I'm very quickly losing my mind! All right. Page 88, chapter 13. Chapter 12. Yes, that face is accurate. That's how I feel right now. Not in all of Spangle Land, nor for that matter anywhere else, is there to be found quite such a twilight as that which is spun in the great tent that belongs to the monkeys and lions and tigers and things. As you must often have noted, there is among the breezes a certain one that is extremely partial to animals. It is never happier than when ruffling the forelock of some big dapple gray, it's like a horse or something, teasing the tail of a proud chanticleer, or cradling a gull in its widespread arms. Indeed, it is a very vagrant breeze of which doubtless you have heard many times, but wherever its fancy may carry it throughout the hours of the day, it always reaches Spangle Land, just before the sun dips from view. There it seeks out a hiding place on the edge of town to watch and to wait. And at the first sign of eventide, this knowing breeze slips along the near the ground. Oh, it's almost done. We're almost done. We're at the end. I can see the finish line. I can do this. This knowing breeze slips along near the ground, wriggles under the wall, and so comes inside the menagerie tent. Once within, it frolics this way and that, but so very slyly that even the keenest eared of the animals can do no more detect it than one might hear a butterfly sing. Yet it is here, there, and everywhere, rubbing its nose against the blue of the poles, and its back and its sides against the cages of red. In doing this, it takes just a bit of the color of both, and so clothes itself in a soft purple coat. Then, when it departs, it leaves the filmy garment behind, and that you see is the twilight. Filmy. I figure filmy, I think of like a bacteria, like on the top of like a, like, is it, you know, like when like bacteria grows in like a liquid and you just stick it as film, is what I think of. Right. Now it was just at that moment when this vagrant breeze had cast off its robe that Dan wound his arms around his knees, gazed thoughtfully across the tops of them, and started the story of Gray Ears the elephant. It all began with the beckoning trees, he said rather slowly. You see, they kept calling me. I was never far from them. The one-ring circus of which I was part of was so very small that it never ventured into the cities, but contented itself with visiting the smallest of hamlets and villages. So as we moved from one to the other, our winding wagon train threaded roads that led through the woods. When we pitched our tent, it was often at the very edge of the trees, and always, ever and always, they beckoned me. At times it was as if their topmost branches were swayed by the great puffs of wind. At such moments they would bend towards me, and then toss themselves back again, as if saying in pantomime, "Come on, Dan, Diggeldy Dan, come and play." And as often as they could, just that often, did I resolve to answer. But somehow I seemed never able to find the time. You see, just because it was so very small, the circus needed the help of all of us to put it in place, to give the performances, and then to move on and on. And so I was busy throughout all the day. As the summer advanced and the woods grew more green, and the shadows more dense, that was page 90, the call came again and again. There were times when I was tempted to let everything go and just skip away to the deep leafy depths. Now this may seem odd to you. But it does not, spoke up Leopard. I know the feeling. And I, added Tiger. So do we all, said Lion a bit wistfully. Indeed, if it were not for that certain most important reason, I sometimes think we animals might, well, there's no telling what we might do. But of course there are the children. Yes, the children, repeated all the animals very softly. The children, to be sure, agreed Diggeldy Dan. I thought of them too. It is all very well for you to dream of running off to the woods, Dan, Diggeldy Dan, I would say to myself. But what of the children that come to the circus to see the clowns? What, yes, what would they say if there wasn't any clown? Answer me that, Diggeldy Dan. And yet there came a day when all my reasoning went to the winds. Did I even say what the chapter's called? It's called Dan Answers the Beckoning Trees. I was too, I think I was too caught up on the chapter numbers. It happened on an afternoon when our tent was pitched between the littlest of towns and the greatest of woods. The crowd had come and the band began to play. The circus was in full swing. I was in the ring jesting with the ringmaster and cutting my cleverest capers, but my thoughts were in the depths of the woods. For I could see the green of the trees through the eaves of the tent, and the rugged brown trunks through the half-curtained door. And oh, how they called me! Not even in the mirth of the tow-headed boy who sat in the very front row, nor the forget-me-nots in the bouquet of the little girl just behind him, could take the tug away from my heart. So he wants to reject circus, reject modernity and embrace trees. That's not, yeah. I should have thought that one out first. Okay, now on this day as always there came the moment when I made a face at the ringmaster, while he on his part let fly his whip, and as was the fashion I pretended great awe of him, and dashed from ring to escape his advance. This bit of acting I had done whole dozens of times, always scampering as far as the door at the rear of the tent, and then coming back to my place. But just as I reached the curtain on this afternoon, the great wind puffs began. How the hundreds upon hundreds of branches bent forward and how they were swept backwards again. They were beckoning me onward, beckoning as never before. And so without much as turning my head, I bounded on through the door and ran straight for the trees. As I reached the first of them, there came the voices of the ringmaster bidding me return. Soon other voices, voices great and small and deep and shrill, rose in one clear cry. Come back, Dan! Come back, Diggeldy Dan! But the woods now held me fast in their arms. On, Diggeldy Dan, cried every leaf. Stop! Stop! Pleaded every child, and mingling with their voices I could hear the guttural bass of the ringmaster's shout. How I ran! Deep, deep into the depths of the boundless woods I sped, and deep, deep into the boundless woods I came. They who gave chase, peering back over my shoulder. Alright. Deep, deep in the boundless... Okay, so, yeah. Peering back over my shoulder, I could see all the children and their fathers. And mothers and uncles and even aunts, coming pell-mell in pursuit, all led by the ringmaster in his shiny top hat and shiny top boots. Huh. You must not run away, Dan, wormed a voice from within. Come away, Dan, sang the leaves from the trees. And so I pressed on. Indeed, I could not stop. The leaves underfoot seemed in league with those overhead. They pushed against the soles of my feet, sending me forward by leaps and by bounds. But fast as I ran, those who came after proved even swifter than I. Looking back once again, I could see the ringmaster had redoubled his speed. On he came, the split trails of his coat sticking straight out behind, while clinging tight to the ends of them were the tow-headed boy and the little girl with the forget-me-not bonnet. I wanted to say behind. She was carrying them in tow or something. I was glad they were gaining on me, and yet I was sorry. I wanted them to catch me, and yet I did not. Meanwhile, I ran like the wind, but they never came nearer and nearer. Nor the ringmaster was so close that I could... The next page is an elephant grabbing him, so that spoiler alert. It's a picture of the elephant grabbing Dan with his trunk. Okay, so what was this first? That I could make out the tiger eye buttons on his very red vest. 100 paces ahead showed the shadowy outline of a densely leafed thicket. For this cover I sped, and rounding its shoulder, shut my pursuers from view. And then, just as I did, something came out from the air, swept me square off my toes, swung me outward and aloft, and then dropped me into the depths of the thicket. As I scrambled to my feet, I could hear the clamoring cries and glimpse the hurrying forms of the throng as they swept around the corner of the coppice that covered me. There were children of all ages and sizes, with many curls and many hair ribbons, held out in the lap of the wind. And there were no end of mothers with very bright eyes and very pink cheeks, hand in hand with no end of fathers, and some carried umbrellas, which they brandished overhead as they ran. But suddenly there came a halt. For a puzzled half-minute, the ringmaster stood looking first to the left and then to the right. Then, as if making up his mind that I had gone towards the north, he cut the air with his whip, thrust it forward like a captain leading his troops on to victory, and cried, "Into the deeper woods!" Instantly all the fathers pointed aloft in exactly the same manner, and away went the throng, rising more of a cry than before. And thus I would have recalled them, but no sooner had I opened my mouth to do so, than there came a warning. Shh! So tremendous that it fairly blew my hat off my head. And looking to the left and to the right, I saw that I was standing between two great mud-colored posts, roofed by a chin, and the undermost side of a monstrous mouth, overhung with a nose that came halfway to the ground. "Not a word out of you," warned the mouth. Swish, swish, from one side went the nose. Tighter and tighter squeezed the two ponderous posts. And meanwhile the voices of those who had left me behind grew fainter and fainter and fainter, until finally I could hear them no more. "Now then," said the mouth, as the posts, which were really two legs, drew apart, and a nose, more correctly a trunk, reached back and lifted me to the place in the light. "Now you may make as much noise as you please." And looking up, I found myself gazing into the good-humored face of an elephant of marvelous size. Alright, last chapter. Which downloads of peanuts and things. Alright. This is chapter 13. First chapter. Alright. My brain's like working at like 12% capacity right now. As it goes on to page 108. Alright. A little bit more tea. I'm out of tea and I'm out of water. Which really is the end. At first my captor merely appealed to me as the merriest-eyed elephant I'd ever seen, and surely the largest. But I soon discovered that he had a way of going about the matters. Oh my god. Oh, I really won't be able to go another chapter. Alright. But I soon discovered that he had a way of going about matters in a most businesslike manner. Thus he immediately began to plan for the two of us. "Now then," said he, "we will leave this rather public place and go to my private apartment. So if you will just hop to the top of my third toe, yes, the right foot will do, and place your arm about my knee. That is the way. We will proceed." And so I, clinging tightly to the big fellow's leg, a great deal of Right. And so I, clinging tightly to the big fellow's leg, a great deal as children sometimes do when they are very small, and father's foot is to be persuaded to give them a ride, we started on our way, the whole of me moving quite like a walking stick when it accompanies its master on a leisurely stroll through the park. On through thicket. My brain's shutting down. On through thicket grove and tangled foliage we went, and then, quite of a moment, passed between two giant trees which formed a natural doorway leading into a half-enclosed room in the wood. I called it a room because it possessed the entrance just mentioned, a floor entirely free from undergrowth, a raggedy west window outlined with bows, and a wide-spreading roof fashioned by a gigantic vine. 2 logs with branches broken off near the trunks, a flat-topped stump of considerable size, and a curious hanging basket affair formed by a lacing of vine loops completed the furnishings. On the floor was a pile of freshly plucked leaves. "You will really have to forgive the appearance of things," apologized my host. "You see, I was at lunch when I heard the shouts, and so I jumped right up from the table, and made my way to the thicket. Besides, I only moved in last night. Nothing fancy, I'll admit, but comfortable. I was rather taken with the rustic furniture. So in keeping with a place of this kind, don't you think? But do sit down." We're almost done. I can do it a little bit longer. I didn't make it to page 100, though. We are at page 100. I just need to finish this chapter. This is actually page 100. And motioning me to accept one of the logs while he took the other, the big fellow swung one foot into the basket-like contrivance of which I have spoken, leaned back in an attitude of perfect contentment, and rumbled something about his idea of solid comfort. Then, noting that my eye was upon the queerest-looking swing that supported his foot, he added, "Ah, I see you're interested in this little invention of mine. A combination hammock and provider, if you please. Hammock for the reason you have already seen. Provider because..." At that he set his foot that lay in the loops of the vine to pumping so hard that the whole of the roof began to rock as if shaken by some mighty wind. Scores upon scores of leaves soon carpeted the floor. These the ponderous fellow swept together with the tip of his trunk, without so much as leaving his seat, and then added them to this half-eaten pile I had noticed. "A rather clever idea, I should say," said he, with some show of pride. "That is, if one doesn't mind eating the shingles off one's own roof. Of course, you see the point. Roof shingles, leaves, ha! I thought you would." And with that he laughed as though he had made quite the best joke in all the world. But in another moment he had dropped into silence, only to break it again to inquire my name. "Diggeldy Dan," I replied, "and yours?" "Gray Ears the Elephant." So it's an A, so this is an American book. Gray. If it was British, it would be Grey. He answered as his look suddenly changed to one of great soberness. "Not just gray ears, mind you, nor merely elephant, but Gray Ears the Elephant. In fact, it was what one might call a whole sentence of a name. However, aside from the fact that it does not well lend itself to being nicknamed, I cannot say much for it. For in the first place, just as there are 2 sides to every story, so are there to every ear." Wow, some profound stuff right there. I don't know what it means. "And the underside of an elephant's ear is oftentimes a rare pink, and frequently as speckled as the nether part of the trout." Trout? Oh, like a fish. As for the phrase, "the elephant," it is absolutely and positively silly, for look at me. You're not supposed me a bumblebee, nor yet a bobolink. What the heck is a bobolink? I have to look this up. What the heck is a bobolink? Sounds like it could be like a link monster. Bird? It just sounds like a very like a black bird with like yellow on the back of his head and like white wings. It looks like he has like balding, like the yellow is like his hair. Who the heck looked at this thing and thought, yeah, it's a Bobolink right there. Yeah, it's right there, Bobolink. Call it that. Right. Still, such is my name, and I make the most of it. But to change the tune of our talk, tell me, whence have you come and why did you run away from the circus? Answering, I told him my story and ended it by adding that had he not prevented, I should have shouted most lustily. Lustily? Ooh. And so called back those who doubtless were still in pursuit of me. For, said I, it was quite wrong of me to have run away in the first place. Yes, in a way, assented Grey Ears. So he's already like. So didn't Grey Ears specifically say like the full name is Grey Ears the elephant? It's not just Grey Ears. You have to say Grey Ears the elephant. And even though it's dumb, like that's my name. And then the book's just like, yeah, it's Grey Ears. But on the other hand, I am sure the children, the grown-ups, and even the ringmaster will enjoy their lark in the woods, even though they return without you. Thus, no inconvenience has come to them. The kids are gonna think he's dead. Those kids are they're gonna go home. Their dad's gonna sit them down, look them in the eyes, and say, "Jimmy, I know you thought that clown was funny. He got eaten by a bear. He definitely got eaten by a bear." "But Dad, there's no bears in this woods." "Well, he's eaten by something, maybe Bigfoot. He's clearly dead." Maybe a deer got really hungry and decided, hey, look at a clown. I don't want to change the pace. Probably didn't even finish eating him because he tasted funny. Ho ho. Alright. Thus no inconvenience came to... What am I... Hey, look at me. Here we go. Thus no inconvenience has come to them. You will go back to your place in the late evening. And... Oh, she's going to go back. Okay. In the meantime, perform a most charitable act by lending me your merry companion for a few hours. Merry company. For to be perfectly frank, I too am a runaway, and a rather loathsome one. You don't mean that you are, I began with some excitement. A circus elephant, finished Grey Ears. None other than the mighty... What do you think? You think it's a wild elephant? In like a forest in America, you think he's a wild elephant? I guess clowns don't really need to be smart, so... I think being dumb is part of their like job description. Right. The mightiest and most marvelous of all pachyderms, and easily the leading feature of the mammoth menagerie of the very biggest circus. And he voiced these mile-long words with such impressiveness that had he worn a waistcoat, I am sure he would have thrust his thumb toes into the armholes of them. Thumb toes. Here was an adventure, a meeting with one who came from the great, great circus of which I, who had never been with the smallest, had heard of and dreamed of, yet never seen. But in the woods, I don't understand. But in the woods, I don't understand, I puzzled. My dear fellow, returned Grey Ears, as he waved in the direction of the very tallest trees. Do you suppose that you are the only one who feels the call? Besides, I had been told that a specially interesting variety of the... Oh god, is it like Latin? Pistache de terre. The heck does that mean? Go into like Google Translate. Or maybe Deep L. Yeah, it's Deep L. Deep L is easier to find. It's like I just type in letter D and it just autocorrects because I use it so much. I do not want to download for free. No thanks. Pistache de terre. It doesn't know. It does not know. It says English. Maybe guys, I misspelled it. Pistache. It still says it's English. Okay. Never mind. Let's go to Google Translate. So there's some languages that DeepL doesn't have. Like, it doesn't have Korean. It's kind of sad. Oh. I hate these, like, ads that, like, pop up on Google. Where, like, I wouldn't have a problem with them if it weren't for the fact that they don't show up right away and you have to wait for them. Like, I go to click on the choose language, and then it just drops all the way down. If I would have actually clicked on something, I would have went to like an ad website. All right, pistache de terre, ground pistachio. It's French. I kind of guessed it. I said it was Latin at first. I can't say I guessed that. I'm just so used to whenever you see like something in italics, like it's gonna be like a Latin name, like Musca domestica or something. Rhizopus stolonifer. Staphylococcus aureus. Is it something like that? Where was I again? Okay. Was to be found in this part of the woods. So I laid my plans, and while we were at the railroad yards last night, awaiting our turn to awaiting our turn to go into the cars. Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah. But I'm pretty sure ground pistachio. I'm pretty sure they mean peanuts. I kind of want some peanuts, right? I get like just a bag of like salted peanuts. All right. I walked softly away along the shadowy places, kept to the back streets of the town. He's like stealthing. Stealth elephant. What a concept. Finally reached the open country. But as to the earth nut that is said to be found here, the whole morning's search has failed to discover even a single vine. You see, he continued, with a great show of vanity, I have the largest collection of pistache de terre. Actually, how do you pronounce this? I don't know any French.
Pistache de terre.
Pistache de terre. Pistache de terre. I'm still probably saying it wrong, but it's at least a little closer. I had the largest collection of pistache de terre in existence. And spreading his toes apart two at a time and burrowing into the opening with the tips of his trunk, he began to take something out from each. And then what do you suppose? He finally laid a heap on top of the tree stump? What? Cried all the animals in excited chorus. Peanuts, answered Diggeldy Dan. Just ordinary everyday circus. Well, circus peanuts are different. Circus peanuts are marshmallows. They're like banana flavored. And I'm pretty sure the company that makes circus peanuts, at least the one that I know that's like pretty big. Yeah, I'm pretty sure they're called Spangle. It's pretty interesting. A little tie-in. It's a reference. Right. And after all those long words too. At least that was what they looked like to me. And so never thinking, I blurted, "Oh, peanuts!" No doubt with a look of disappointment. For I expected something quite peanuts are wonderful. They're delicious. They're amazing. They're like the best. They're like the best things there are. And then added, "No, thank you. I don't believe I care for any just now." He doesn't like. But don't let that keep you from having some. Having some, repeated my companion, as if he was unable to believe his ears, large as they were. Having some, he fairly shouted again in horrifying tones. And looking at me in the most pitying manner, he added, "Why, friend clown?" That's gonna be a new internet insult, friend clown. Like a really like sort of passive aggressive, no, patronizing. Oh, friend clown. Why, friend clown, do you not suppose there are elephants who look upon the peanuts as something more than a thing to be eaten? That there are those who would study them? For what happier hobby could a circus elephant have than that which calls for the collecting of this most excellent nut? Consider this one, for instance, continued Gray Ears as he held up one of the peanuts to the light. That is the true goober. That's the best line of any book ever written in the entire world. That is the true goober. Brilliant. Brilliant. See with what a delicate sweep it curves in at waistline. Here, on the other hand, is a quite different nut. The pindar, that comes from the islands. A sailor brought it to the circus one day. To you and to him is merely a peanut. But to the trained eye is a warm, yellow tint in its wrinkled face, and a certain sweep to its curves that place it far from its various cousins. So during my travels, thousands upon thousands of nuts have passed under my eyes. And from them, I have made this collection of exactly 17 different ones. And so he passed from one peanut to the other, pointing out the beauties of each, went on Diggeldy Dan, and was just explaining that the word peanut was unknown to the children of some lands, while monkey nut served for a name instead, when suddenly stopping short and gathering his brows into 3 immensely deep puckers, he fixed his attention upon something away toward the west. Following his gaze, I saw a blood-red blotch that fairly flamed far off through the trees. Fire, we both cried, as if in one breath, and then gray ears began to laugh at one thought. Fire nothing, thought he. It's the sun making ready for bed. Goodness me, so it is, I exclaimed. I had no idea it was so late. I hope you will not think me rude, but really I must go at once. Of course you must, the big fellow agreed, as he led the way from the room. I fear I have delayed you too long as it is, but never doubt, I'll have you back at the edge of the littlest town in but a little while more than no time at all. Come on to my third toe. Hold fast there, we're off. I gotta reread that just because that was terrible. Come on my third toe. Hold fast there, we're off. It is phrased kind of weirdly. Oh, my neck. We're almost done. This is the last page. And with his trunk rolled into position, while I clung with both arms to his leg, Gray Ears started forward with such amazing strides that, had I not been standing on one of his feet, I would have surely thought he had suddenly been shod with 7-league boots. Shod? What does shod mean? There's a lot of words I'm guessing like 1920s vernacular. I just... Shod. Okay, let's scroll through the ads again. To fit a horse with a shoe or shoes. To protect with a metal shoe. So it's shoed. Shod is the passive shoe. You shod a shoe shoeingly. I would have surely thought that he had been shot, so he's like shoed, or got some 7-league boots. I'm guessing they're like Air Jordans. Elephant got some Air Jordans. Anyways, we crashed, making straight for the... there's only like one more paragraph. Anyway, we crashed, making straight for the heart of the sunset. Onward we... Hey, Dan! The pedal watch! Cried Monkey. Closing, sure enough, rejoined Diggeldy Dan. A minute later, he was skipping away down the menagerie tent. Calling a good night to his friends and assuring them that he would be back on the morrow to tell them still more of the tale. Elephant might beat out... Like, Gray Ears might beat out Monkey for my favorite character. Him, with his peanut... Now that is a true goober. That's the best book quote of all time. All right, we made it almost to like an hour and 40 minutes. We are a little around like halfway done with the book. It looks like it's like just holding the book like you know, look, I almost tried to show it to you. Like I'm holding it like for some reason you'd be able to see. But it looks like there's more pages on the left than there are on the, so it looks like I'm a little more than halfway done, but I think that's just because of all the forewords and stuff like that. There's a little bit of like, you know, contents, illustration. Wait. These tales were first told for the children's page of the Christian Science Monitor. And the author takes this means of acknowledging his appreciation of the arrangement by which he is privileged to republish them. So these are all like individual short stories. What is the Christian Science Monitor? This doesn't sound very Christian of a book. Because they're talking about fairies, you know? And yeah, I'm not a Bible expert, but I don't think there's fairies in the Bible. Christian Science Monitor. Commonly known as the Monitor, is a non-profit news organization that publishes daily articles in electronic format, as well as a weekly print edition. It was founded in 1908 as a daily newspaper by Mary Baker Eddy, the founder of the Church of Christ Scientist. It's like a cult. To injure no man but to bless all mankind. Our aim is to embrace the human family, shedding light with a conviction that understands the world's problems and possibilities, moves us towards solutions. Weird. They have a Twitter. They have a Twitter. Wait. The three Christian leaders said gay people should be welcomed by their churches during an unprecedented joint airborne news conference returning home from South Sudan. 2 hours ago. It's 2 hours ago. This is crazy. I've never seen this before. Alright. Pope, Anglican, Presbyterian leaders speak out against anti-gay laws. Let's see what the comments are. I'm scared. There's none. Alright. 11 likes. It's kind of, they're still around, huh? That's weird. That is actually weird. I did not know that. I had no idea there's any like. There's a published. Like I just thought it was like I just thought it was Little Brown and Company. Printed in the United States of America. Yeah, I guess that answers that. 1920 Christmas 1927. This is a Christmas gift for a kid. In 1927, a kid got this for this book that I'm holding right now in my hands. This book was a Christmas gift in 1927. That's amazing. A kid woke up on Christmas of 1927 and unwrapped this book. This very book that I'm holding in my hands right now. That I bought from a store. I think it's probably not even alive anymore. That's wild. Anyways, that should about end this stream. A little bit of weird revelation at the end. You know, just you ever hear like whenever I hear like Christian like a religion thing and then science together, I always just Like that's usually like Scientology kind of stuff. That immediately pops into my mind. It looks like they're just like a news organization though. So I'm guessing they were like posting about like it's like an organization that posts about like Christian news. And they've been doing it since the early, like the 1900s, like 1908. And I'm guessing they had this in here for like just little bedtime stories for the kids. Like a little like thing that they printed in there, you know. And this is like a collection of all the stories. I'm guessing each chapter is like a different edition that was posted in their like, you know, newspaper or something like that. And we're about halfway done with the book. So yeah, I will now that we're gotten to a point where I should stop the music. I should stop the music. There we go. We've gotten to part 2. So that means I've actually kind of like I've dedicated quite a bit of time, and I think we're gonna finish this. Shouldn't take too much longer. Probably like 1 or 2 more streams, probably 2. But yeah, I will. I'm gonna be busy, you know, for the rest of this week because you know, work, and then I have to go to bed really early, wake up pretty early, and but the next weekend I should be able to stream again. Maybe I'll do the same thing where I do like a gaming stream and then like a reading stream. That could be like a nice like schedule. But until then, I will see you next time. Toodles!